The text arrived at 9:59 p.m. Dubai time while I was nursing my third whiskey in the Burj Khalifa's observation lounge. The house feels so empty without you, Miles. Miss you terribly. Love, Mara. I almost laughed. Instead, I pulled out my tablet and opened the home security app. The living room camera showed Mara's wine glass on the coffee table, her third, judging by the lipstick stains. The kitchen camera revealed takeout containers from Romano's, the expensive Italian place she claimed we couldn't afford. Then I checked the front door camera's motion history. Evan Mercer's BMW had pulled into my driveway at 9:47 p.m. 12 minutes before her text. The fourth consecutive night this week. I typed back, "Check the security cameras. Looks pretty full to me." My phone buzzed immediately. "What do you mean?" "I've been monitoring them from Dubai. Your friend has been there every night for a month." 3 minutes passed. Then, "I can explain." "Explain to your lawyer." I closed the app and ordered another whiskey. The bartender, a cheerful Pakistani named Hassan, noticed my expression. "Bad news from home, sir." "Actually," I said, "I think it's the best news I've had in years." The thing about being a cybersecurity consultant is that you develop certain habits. You back up everything. You monitor everything. You trust nothing at face value. When your wife starts acting strange, coming home late, whispering phone calls, sudden interest in her appearance, you don't confront her. You gather data. Mara thought she was clever. 3 years of marriage to a tech expert, and she still believed I was the absent-minded professor type who wouldn't notice her digital footprints. She was wrong about a lot of things, but that might have been her biggest mistake. I'd been in Dubai for 2 weeks, setting up security protocols for a banking consortium. The work was routine, but the distance gave me perspective, and time to dig deeper into the inconsistencies I'd been noticing for months, like the fertility clinic appointments. Mara had been insisting we needed specialist help to have another child. Our daughter Olivia was 4 now, and Mara claimed she'd been trying to get pregnant for 2 years. The appointments were expensive, always scheduled when I was traveling, and she always went alone. "The doctor says I might have endometriosis," she'd explained after her third visit. "It could take time to diagnose properly." I'd offered to accompany her, to research specialists, to get second opinions. She'd dismissed every suggestion with practiced concern. "You're so busy with work, honey. I can handle this." But from Dubai, with time and distance, I'd done what I should have done months ago. I'd called Dr. Patricia Reeves directly. "Mr. Heron, I'm confused," Dr. Reeves had said during our video call. "Your wife hasn't been here in over 6 months, and we never discussed endometriosis. Her last exam was completely normal." The pieces started falling into place with sickening clarity. The mysterious appointments, the credit card charges at restaurants I'd never been to, the new clothes, the sudden gym membership, the phone calls that ended when I entered the room. And Evan Mercer. Evan was our lawyer, technically. He'd handled the incorporation of my consulting firm 3 years ago, drafted our wills, even witnessed our prenuptial agreement. He was charming in that practiced way attorneys develop, with perfect teeth and expensive suits. Mara had always seemed impressed by him. "He's so sophisticated," she'd say after our meetings. "Not like most of your tech friends." I'd thought it was harmless admiration. Now I realized it was recruitment. My tablet chimed with another text from Mara. "Please don't do anything crazy. Let me explain when you get home." I finished my whiskey and opened my laptop. If she wanted explanations, I had a few questions of my own, starting with the $840,000 that had disappeared from my father's estate 6 months ago. Dad had been old school about money. When he passed last year, his lawyer had found a safe deposit box containing bearer bonds. Depression-era paranoia that turned out to be prescient. The bonds were legitimate, worth nearly $1 million, and legally mine as his sole heir. Except they weren't in the box anymore. The bank's records showed they'd been transferred to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. The authorization bore my father's signature and a power of attorney document dated 6 months before his passing. The witness signature belonged to Mara. I'd been grieving when she'd offered to handle the estate paperwork. "You're dealing with so much," she'd said. "Let me take care of the details." She'd taken care of them, all right. From my hotel room 40 floors above the Persian Gulf, I started making calls. The Cayman Bank was cooperative once I provided the proper credentials. The account had been opened by Mara Heron, using documentation that looked legitimate but contained subtle forgeries I could spot with my trained eye. The money was gone, transferred to 3 different accounts across 2 continents. But money leaves traces, especially when you know where to look. My phone rang. Mara's photo appeared on the screen, a selfie from our honeymoon, all smiles and promises. I let it go to voicemail. "Miles, please pick up. I know you're upset, but this isn't what it looks like. Call me back. It was exactly what it looked like. The only question was how long it had been going on. I opened the security app again and scrolled through the motion detection history. Evan's BMW appeared in my driveway with suspicious regularity over the past 3 months. Always in the evening, always when I was traveling. The pattern was so obvious, I wondered how I'd missed it. Because I'd trusted her. Because I'd been focused on building my business, providing for our family, planning for our future. Because I'd believed the woman who'd promised to love and honor me actually meant those words. Another text arrived. Evan is just helping me with some legal paperwork. Nothing inappropriate is happening. Legal paperwork at 10 p.m. in my bedroom. I pulled up the bedroom camera's history, but the feed was dark. According to the system logs, that camera had been disabled 3 weeks ago for maintenance. I hadn't authorized any maintenance. A quick call to Secure Home Systems confirmed my suspicion. Mrs. Heron had paid cash to have the bedroom cameras deactivated. The work order was signed by the homeowner, Evan Mercer. Your wife seemed real nervous about privacy, the technician told me. Kept asking if anyone could access the feeds remotely. I told her only the account holder, but she insisted on the full shutdown. They'd been planning this for weeks, maybe months. While I'd been working 16-hour days to grow my business, they'd been dismantling my life with surgical precision. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd underestimated exactly how paranoid a cybersecurity expert could be. I opened my laptop and accessed a server I'd set up years ago, a backup system Mara didn't know existed. Hidden cameras with their own cellular connection, financial monitoring software that tracked every transaction, and communication intercepts that would make the NSA proud. All perfectly legal when installed in your own home to protect your own assets. The files downloaded slowly over the hotel's Wi-Fi. Hours of footage, weeks of financial records, months of digital breadcrumbs that painted a picture of betrayal so comprehensive it took my breath away. But as I watched my wife's deception unfold in high definition, I felt something unexpected. Not rage, not heartbreak, but a cold, calculating satisfaction. They thought they'd been clever. They thought they'd covered their tracks. They had no idea what was coming. The courier arrived at my Dubai hotel at 6 a.m. with a package I'd been expecting. Inside were medical records, financial documents, and a USB drive containing enough evidence to destroy 2 lives. I'd spent the night gathering ammunition, and now I had enough to level a city. Dr. Patricia Reeves had been more helpful than she'd realized during our call. After explaining my situation, she'd agreed to review Mara's complete medical history. The results were illuminating. Your wife has never been diagnosed with endometriosis, Dr. Reeves had confirmed in writing. Her reproductive health is excellent. In fact, she's been on birth control for the past 18 months, a detail she specifically requested we not include in any communications to your home address. Birth control, while telling me she desperately wanted another child, while scheduling fake fertility appointments, while draining our savings for treatments that never happened. The USB drive contained something even more damaging, security footage from Romano's restaurant. The owner, Tony Benedetto, was a client of mine. When I'd mentioned seeing charges from his restaurant, he'd offered to check his cameras. Your wife's been coming in twice a week for months, Tony had said. Always with the same guy, tall, expensive suit, thinks he's hot stuff. They sit in the corner booth, real cozy. Last week she was crying, and he was holding her hand. The footage showed intimate dinners, champagne toasts, and body language that told the whole story. In one particularly damning clip, Evan had his hand on Mara's thigh while she laughed at something he'd whispered in her ear. But the financial records were the real treasure. Mara had been sloppy with her digital security, a common mistake among people who thought technology was magic. Her email account, linked to her phone, had automatically backed up to a cloud service I'd set up years ago for family photos. The backup included everything: hotel reservations for weekend getaways while I was traveling, credit card statements showing purchases at Victoria's Secret and expensive boutiques, text messages that would make a sailor blush, and most damning of all, email exchanges with Evan about their exit strategy. Miles will be in Singapore next month, one message read. That gives us 3 weeks to finalize everything. Are you sure the prenup won't be a problem? Evan's response was chilling in its calculation. Trust me, sweetheart. I wrote that agreement myself. I know exactly how to void it. They'd been planning to take everything, the house, the business, our daughter, and every dollar I'd worked to earn. Mara would file for divorce while I was overseas, claiming abandonment and emotional distress. Evan would represent her, using his insider knowledge of our finances to maximize her settlement. It was brilliant, really, except for one small detail they'd overlooked. I'd been recording everything for months. My phone buzzed with another call from Mara. This time I answered. Miles, thank goodness. I've been trying to reach you all night. I've been busy, I said, watching Hassan prepare my morning coffee. Learning about endometriosis. Silence. Then, what do you mean? I spoke with Dr. Reeves. Fascinating conversation. Did you know she has no record of diagnosing you with anything? Amazing how medical conditions can just disappear like that. Miles, I can explain. Can you also explain the birth control prescription? The one you specifically requested she not mention to me. The silence stretched longer this time. When Mara spoke again, her voice had changed. The sweet, concerned wife was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. You've been spying on me. I've been protecting my family, though it turns out my family was the threat. It's not what you think. Really? Because I think my wife has been planning to steal everything I own while pretending to love me. I think she's been having an affair with our lawyer while lying about wanting children. I think she forged documents to steal my father's inheritance. Am I wrong about any of that? Another long pause. How did you find out? Mara, I design security systems for a living. Did you really think I wouldn't notice $840,000 disappearing from my father's estate? That money was as much mine as yours. We're married. We were married when you forged those documents. We were married when you opened that Cayman account. We were married when you started planning to destroy me. I could hear her breathing, calculating. What do you want? I want you to understand something very clearly, I said, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through my system. You picked the wrong target. You thought you were playing checkers with some naive tech nerd, but I've been playing chess since before you learned to lie. Are you threatening me? I'm educating you. See, the thing about being a cybersecurity consultant is that you learn how to protect things. Bank accounts, intellectual property, digital assets. You also learn how to make things disappear when necessary. What are you talking about? Check your email, Mara. I've sent you some reading material. I hung up and opened my laptop. With a few keystrokes, I sent her a carefully curated selection of her own messages, the hotel reservations, the restaurant receipts, the text exchanges with Evan, just enough to let her know I had everything, but not enough to show my full hand. My phone rang immediately. I declined the call and sent a text. Explain to your lawyer. Oh, wait, he's part of the problem. 20 minutes later, my phone rang again. This time it was Evan. Miles, we need to talk. Do we? Because I thought lawyers were supposed to avoid conflicts of interest. Representing both parties in a marriage while sleeping with one of them seems like a textbook violation. Listen, this is complicated. It's really not. You've been planning to defraud me while violating your professional ethics. The only complicated part is deciding which bar association to contact first. You don't understand the situation. I understand it perfectly. You thought you found an easy mark, successful businessman, travels frequently, trusts his wife and lawyer. You planned to take everything and disappear. The only thing you didn't plan for was getting caught. What do you want? It was the same question Mara had asked, and it told me everything I needed to know. They weren't sorry. They weren't ashamed. They were just trying to minimize the damage. I want you to understand that your legal career is over, I said calmly. I want you to know that every client you've ever represented will question every piece of advice you've given them. I want you to realize that you threw away everything for a woman who's probably already planning to blame this entire mess on you. You can't prove anything. Evan, I have video of you signing work orders as the homeowner of my house. I have financial records of you helping Mara steal inheritance money. I have security footage of you two together that would make excellent evidence in both divorce and disbarment proceedings. What exactly do you think I can't prove? The line went quiet. When Evan spoke again, his voice had lost its practiced confidence. What do you want me to do? I want you to think very carefully about your next move, because everything you do from this moment forward is being recorded, monitored, and documented. Every phone call, every email, every transaction. You're living in a fishbowl now, and I'm the one watching. I ended the call and leaned back in my chair. Hassan approached with a fresh cup of coffee and his usual cheerful smile. Good news from home today, sir? Getting better by the minute, I said. My laptop chimed with a new email. Mara had responded to my evidence package with a single line. We need to talk when you get home. I typed back, we'll talk in court. Bring your checkbook. But I wasn't planning to wait for court. I had a business trip to cut short and a war to win. They'd started this fight with lies and deception. I was going to finish it with the truth. The flight from Dubai to Minneapolis gave me 14 hours to plan my strategy. By the time we touched down at MSP, I had a complete battle plan, and the phone numbers of 3 attorneys who specialized in exactly the kind of warfare I was about to wage. I didn't go home immediately. Instead, I drove to my office in downtown Minneapolis, a converted warehouse space I'd chosen specifically for its security features. Reinforced walls, multiple exit routes, and surveillance equipment that could monitor a small country. My assistant, Jennifer Walsh, was surprised to see me. "I thought you weren't back until next week." "Change of plans. I need you to contact our insurance company and add fraud protection to our business policy. Then call our accountant and schedule an emergency audit of all personal and business finances." Jennifer had worked for me for 3 years. She was smart enough to read between the lines. "Trouble at home?" "Nothing I can't handle, but I want our business protected from any collateral damage." I spent the afternoon moving assets, changing passwords, and implementing security protocols I'd hoped never to need. By evening, every dollar I'd earned was locked behind digital walls that would take a team of experts months to breach. Then I drove home. The house looked exactly the same from the outside, a modest colonial in a quiet suburb, with the perfect lawn Mara insisted we maintain, and the 2-car garage that now seemed like a metaphor for our separate lives. But everything felt different now that I knew what had been happening behind these walls. Mara's car was in the driveway, so was Evan's BMW. I parked on the street and sat for a moment, watching the house where I'd planned to raise my daughter and grow old with my wife. The living room windows glowed with warm light. If you didn't know better, it looked like the picture of domestic happiness. I walked to the front door and used my key. The sound of voices stopped abruptly as I entered. Mara was sitting on the couch, still beautiful, but looking older than I remembered. Stress had carved new lines around her eyes, and her perfect makeup couldn't quite hide the exhaustion. Evan stood near the fireplace, trying to project confidence but failing badly. "Miles," Mara said, rising from the couch. "You're early." "Am I interrupting something? Legal consultation, perhaps?" Evan stepped forward, attempting to take control of the situation. "Miles, we need to discuss this rationally." "Rationally?" I set my suitcase down and closed the door behind me. "You want to discuss rationality? Let's start with the rational decision to commit fraud, or the rational choice to violate attorney-client privilege, or maybe the rational plan to steal my inheritance while pretending to be my friend." "It's not that simple," Mara said. "You're right. It's actually much worse than I initially thought." I pulled out my phone and opened a voice recording app. "Since Evan is here in his professional capacity, I assume you won't mind if I record this legal consultation for my records." "That's not necessary," Evan said quickly. "Oh, but it is. See, I've learned not to trust either of you to tell the truth about anything, so from now on, everything gets documented." I looked around the room, my furniture, my books, my life, and felt a strange sense of detachment. This place had stopped being home the moment I'd discovered their betrayal. "Where's Olivia?" I asked. "She's at my sister's house," Mara said. "I thought it would be better if she wasn't here for this conversation." "Smart thinking, though I notice you didn't extend the same courtesy to your boyfriend." "Miles, please." "Please what? Please pretend I don't know what's been going on? Please ignore the evidence? Please let you both continue lying to my face?" I walked to the mantelpiece and picked up a framed photo of our wedding day. Mara in white, radiant with happiness. Or what I'd thought was happiness. Now I wondered if she'd been planning this betrayal even then. "I have a question for you both," I said, setting the photo face down. "Did you ever love me, Mara, or was I always just a mark?" "Of course I loved you." Past tense. Interesting choice. Evan cleared his throat. "Miles, I think we should focus on moving forward constructively." "Constructively?" I turned to face him. "You mean like when you constructed that prenup with deliberate loopholes? Or when you constructed fake documents to steal my father's money?" "I never stole anything." "No, you just provided the legal framework for my wife to steal it. Much more professional." I pulled out my tablet and opened a folder labeled Evidence. The screen showed bank records, email exchanges, and security footage timestamps. "I've spent the last week putting together a timeline of your relationship," I said. "It's fascinating reading. Did you know I can trace your first romantic dinner to exactly 6 days after you finished drafting our asset protection agreement?" Mara's face went pale. "You've been spying on us." "I've been protecting myself. There's a difference." "This is illegal surveillance," Evan said, trying to regain his footing. "Any evidence gathered through unauthorized monitoring would be inadmissible." "In my own home? Using my own security system?" "I don't think so, counselor, but please continue giving legal advice to both parties in this dispute. I'm sure the state bar will find that fascinating." The room fell silent. I could see them both calculating, trying to figure out how much I knew and how much damage I could do. "Here's what's going to happen," I said calmly. "Evan, you're going to leave my house and never come back. You're going to withdraw from any legal matters involving my family, and you're going to start looking for a new career because your law license won't survive what's coming. You can't. I can, and I will. Unless you'd prefer to explain to your wife why hotel charges to the Marriott downtown appear on your credit card every Tuesday for the past 3 months. Evan's confident facade cracked completely. How did you get access to your financial records? Evan, you use the same password for everything. It took me about 10 minutes to map your entire digital life. I turned to Mara, who was staring at me like she'd never seen me before. As for you, dear wife, here's your choice. You can return my father's money, agree to an uncontested divorce with minimal alimony, and accept supervised visitation with Olivia. Or you can fight me in court and lose everything. You can't take Olivia away from me. I can when I have evidence of fraud, adultery, and child endangerment. Did you really think bringing your boyfriend into our daughter's home was acceptable? I never endangered. You forged legal documents. You committed fraud. You exposed our 4-year-old to adult situations she shouldn't witness. Any family court judge will see you as a threat to her stability. Mara started crying, real tears, not the practiced manipulation I'd grown used to. Miles, please. I made mistakes, but I'm still her mother. Yes, you are. And if you're smart, you'll do what's best for her now instead of what's best for you. I looked at both of them, these two people who'd planned to destroy my life, and felt something I hadn't expected. Not anger, but pity. They'd thrown away everything real for something built on lies. You have 48 hours to decide, I said. After that, every piece of evidence I've gathered goes to the appropriate authorities. The State Bar, the IRS, the FBI Fraud Division, everyone who might be interested in your activities. Evan headed for the door without another word. Mara followed him, whispering urgently. I watched through the window as they stood beside his car, arguing in heated whispers. Then they were gone, and I was alone in the house that no longer felt like home. I walked upstairs to our bedroom, my bedroom now, and opened the closet. Mara's clothes hung beside mine, a mockery of the partnership I'd thought we shared. Her jewelry box sat on the dresser, filled with gifts I'd given her for birthdays and anniversaries. All of it felt contaminated now. I pulled out my phone and called Jennifer. I need you to recommend a moving company, the kind that can pack and store everything within 24 hours. Everything? Everything that belongs to me. I'm starting over. After I hung up, I sat on the edge of the bed and looked around the room where I'd slept beside a stranger for 3 years, where I'd planned our future while she'd planned my destruction. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This isn't over. I typed back, "You're right. It's just beginning." They thought they knew who they were dealing with. They thought I was just another trusting husband who'd roll over and accept defeat. They were about to learn exactly how wrong they were. The next morning brought the first real surprise of this war. Mara had hired her own attorney. Not just any attorney, but Patricia Morrison, the most expensive divorce lawyer in Minneapolis. Someone had to be funding that choice, and I had a pretty good idea who. Morrison's office called at 8 a.m. with demands that would have been laughable if they weren't so audacious. Temporary support payments of $15,000 per month, exclusive use of the family home, primary custody of Olivia, and a restraining order preventing me from harassing my wife. I called my own attorney, David Chen, a former prosecutor who specialized in high-conflict divorces. They're playing hardball, David said after reviewing Morrison's demands, but they are also making mistakes. Filing for a restraining order without evidence of actual harassment could backfire spectacularly. What do you need from me? Everything you've got. Documentation, evidence, financial records. If what you've told me is accurate, we're not just fighting a divorce, we're fighting a criminal conspiracy. I spent the morning at David's office, downloading files and explaining the full scope of Mara and Evan's deception. David's expression grew more serious with each revelation. "This is worse than I thought," he said finally. "The inheritance theft alone is a felony. Add in the document forgery and the legal ethics violations, and we're looking at multiple prosecutions. I don't want revenge," I said. "I want justice, and I want my daughter protected. We'll get both. But Miles, you need to understand, this is going to get ugly. They're going to attack your character, your parenting, your business practices. They'll try to make you look like the villain. Let them try." That afternoon, I got a preview of their strategy. Mara had posted on social media a carefully crafted message about surviving emotional abuse and protecting my daughter from a controlling father. The post had dozens of sympathetic comments from friends who had no idea what was really happening. But I'd been preparing for this too. I called Tony Benedetto at Romano's restaurant. "Tony, remember those security videos you showed me? I need copies for court proceedings." Whatever you need, Miles. That woman played you dirty. Next, I contacted Dr. Patricia Reeves. Doctor, I'm going to need you to testify about my wife's medical deception. Will you be willing to appear in court? Absolutely. What she did was unconscionable. Then I made the call I'd been dreading. I contacted Child Protective Services. I need to report suspected child endangerment, I told the intake worker. My wife has been exposing our 4-year-old daughter to inappropriate adult situations during an extramarital affair. The investigation would be confidential, but it would create an official record of concern about Olivia's welfare. More importantly, it would trigger a home study that would reveal Mara's unstable living situation. By evening, I'd assembled an army of evidence and allies. But Mara wasn't finished with her surprises. She arrived at my office building with Olivia in tow, clearly hoping to create a scene in front of witnesses. I watched from my window as she approached the security desk in the lobby, my daughter's small hand clutched in hers. I went downstairs to meet them. Daddy! Olivia ran to me with the pure joy that only a 4-year-old can express. I picked her up, feeling the weight of what I was fighting for. Hello, sweetheart. I missed you. Mommy said you were sick. Are you better now? I looked at Mara over our daughter's head. Mommy was confused. Daddy's fine. We need to talk, Mara said. She looked exhausted, and I noticed her hands shaking slightly. The stress was getting to her. About what? About ending this before it destroys everyone. I set Olivia down and knelt to her level. Sweetie, can you sit in those chairs over there and color in your book? Mommy and Daddy need to have a grown-up conversation. Olivia skipped away, oblivious to the tension between her parents. I envied her innocence. You can't take her away from me, Mara said quietly. Whatever else happens, she needs her mother. She needs stability. She needs honesty. She needs parents who put her welfare above their own desires. I never put her at risk. You brought your boyfriend into her home. You lied to her about why Daddy was traveling. You used her as a prop in your social media campaign for sympathy. Mara's composure cracked. I made mistakes, but I love her. So do I. That's why I'm fighting for her. What do you want, Miles? Really? I looked at my daughter, happily coloring in her book, and felt the weight of responsibility settle on my shoulders. I want you to return the money you stole. I want you to end your relationship with Evan. I want you to get counseling for whatever drove you to destroy our family. And I want shared custody with appropriate safeguards. And if I don't agree? Then we go to trial, and everything becomes public record. Your affair, the theft, the lies, all of it. Your friends who are posting supportive comments will learn the truth. Your family will learn the truth. Olivia will eventually learn the truth. Mara was quiet for a long moment, watching our daughter color. You've changed. You're right. The man you married would have believed your lies and blamed himself for your choices. That man is gone. I never meant for it to go this far. But it did, and now we have to deal with the consequences. My phone buzzed with a text from David Chen. Morrison wants to meet tomorrow. They're ready to negotiate. I showed the message to Mara. Your attorney wants to talk. That tells me you're starting to understand the strength of my position. What happens to Evan? That's not my concern anymore. He made his choices. He's going to lose everything. So did I. The difference is, I'm getting mine back. Mara called Olivia over and knelt down to hug her goodbye. I watched our daughter's face, looking for signs of trauma or confusion, but she seemed happy and secure. Whatever else Mara had done, she'd protected Olivia from the worst of it. I'll think about what you said, Mara told me. Don't think too long. My offer expires when this goes public. After they left, I sat in the lobby for a few minutes, processing the conversation. For the first time since this began, Mara had seemed genuinely remorseful. Not manipulative, not calculating, just tired and scared. But remorse didn't undo betrayal, and fear didn't erase the months of deception. My phone rang. David Chen with an update. Morrison called. They want to settle? Full terms negotiable. What changed? I may have mentioned the criminal referrals you're prepared to file. Amazing how quickly people become reasonable when they are facing felony charges. I walked back to my office, feeling something I hadn't experienced in weeks. Hope. Not for reconciliation, that bridge was permanently burned, but hope for justice, for closure, and for a future where my daughter could grow up without the poison of her parents' failed marriage. The war wasn't over, but I could see the end approaching. And for the first time, I was confident about who would be standing when the smoke cleared. The settlement conference took place in a sterile conference room at Morrison's law firm. Mara sat across from me, flanked by her attorney and looking like she hadn't slept in days. Evan was notably absent. Apparently, his own legal troubles had become too pressing for him to continue playing advisor. David Chen had prepared meticulously. The conference table was covered with evidence folders, financial documents, and legal briefs that painted a comprehensive picture of 3 years of deception. "Let's cut to the chase," Morrison said, opening her leather portfolio. "My client is prepared to make concessions in exchange for your agreement not to pursue criminal charges." "I'm listening," David replied. "Full return of the inheritance funds, currently $847,000, including accrued interest. Uncontested divorce with minimal alimony, $2,000 per month for 2 years. Joint custody with a structured parenting plan." I looked at Mara, who was staring at her hands. "What about the house?" "She'll sign a quitclaim deed transferring full ownership to you," Morrison said. "In exchange, you'll assume the mortgage and provide her with $50,000 for relocation expenses." David leaned back in his chair. "And Mr. Mercer?" "My client's relationship with Mr. Mercer has ended. She's prepared to cooperate fully with any bar association investigation." "What about counseling?" I asked. Mara looked up for the first time. "What kind of counseling?" "Therapy to address whatever drove you to make these choices. Not for me, for Olivia. She deserves a mother who's emotionally healthy." "I'll agree to counseling." David pulled out a prepared settlement agreement. "There are a few additional terms my client requires. First, a morality clause preventing either parent from exposing Olivia to romantic partners until she's at least 10 years old. Second, mandatory co-parenting counseling to ensure healthy communication. Third, a social media clause preventing either party from discussing the divorce or making disparaging comments about the other parent. Morrison reviewed the terms with Mara in whispered conversation. Finally, she nodded. "We can accept those conditions." "And the criminal referrals?" David asked. "Will be withdrawn upon full execution of this agreement," I said, "but if any term is violated, all bets are off." We spent 2 hours working through details: custody schedules, holiday arrangements, financial disclosures, and asset transfers. By the end, we had a comprehensive agreement that would legally end our marriage and establish a framework for co-parenting Olivia. But as Mara signed the papers, she looked up at me with tears in her eyes. "I'm sorry, Miles. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I need you to know. I did love you. I just lost myself somewhere along the way." "I believe you," I said, "but love without honesty isn't love, it's just need." After the attorneys finished their paperwork, Mara and I walked to the parking garage together. The silence between us felt different now, not hostile, just final. "What will you tell Olivia?" she asked. "The truth, in age-appropriate terms. That sometimes grown-ups make mistakes that mean they can't live together anymore, but that both her parents love her and will always be there for her." "And about Evan?" "Nothing. That's your story to tell or not tell when she's old enough to understand." Mara got into her car, a modest sedan she'd bought to replace the luxury SUV she could no longer afford. "Will you ever forgive me?" "I already have. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or trusting again. It just means I'm not going to let your choices poison my future." 3 months later, I was sitting in my new apartment, a modern space downtown with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the Mississippi River. Olivia was with me for the weekend, playing with blocks on the living room floor. "Daddy, why don't you and Mommy live together anymore?" It was the question I'd been preparing for, but it still hit me like a punch to the stomach. "Sometimes grown-ups realize they want different things in life," I said carefully. "It doesn't mean we don't love you. It just means we'll love you from different houses." "But I have 2 bedrooms now," she said pragmatically. "And Mommy's new apartment has a pool." Children are remarkably resilient. Olivia had adapted to our new arrangement with the flexibility that only a 4-year-old possesses. She seemed happy, secure, and blissfully unaware of the adult drama that had reshaped her world. My phone buzzed with a news alert. Evan Mercer had been officially disbarred by the State Bar Association. His law practice had collapsed, his marriage had ended, and he was facing potential criminal charges for fraud. The article mentioned that he was working as a paralegal while appealing the decision. I felt no satisfaction in his downfall, just a quiet sense that justice had been served. Mara had kept her word about everything. The money had been returned, the house had been transferred, and she'd started therapy with a counselor who specialized in relationship addiction and impulse control disorders. Our co-parenting relationship was cordial but distant, 2 people working together for their child's benefit while acknowledging that trust could never be fully restored. "Daddy, are you sad?" Olivia asked, noticing my contemplative mood. "No, sweetheart. I'm grateful." "For what?" I looked around my new home, smaller than the house I'd shared with Mara, but honest in a way that space had never been. I thought about my business, which was thriving now that I wasn't distracted by marital problems. I thought about my daughter, who was growing up strong and confident despite her parents' failures. "I'm grateful for you," I said, pulling her into a hug. "And I'm grateful for new beginnings." That evening, after Olivia had fallen asleep in her new bedroom, I stood at my window looking out at the city lights. My reflection stared back. Older, wiser, scarred, but not broken. I'd learned that love without trust was just elaborate self-deception. I'd learned that forgiveness was a gift you gave yourself, not others. And I'd learned that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you can become the catalyst for the best thing. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Saw the news about Evan. Hope you're happy now." I typed back, "I'm not happy about anyone's pain, but I'm at peace with justice." The response came quickly. "Some of us are trying to rebuild our lives." Good luck with that. I deleted the conversation and blocked the number. Mara's attempts to maintain contact beyond our required co-parenting communication weren't my concern anymore. I opened my laptop and began working on a new security protocol for a client in Seattle. The work was challenging, engaging, and completely honest, everything my marriage hadn't been. Outside my window, Minneapolis sparkled with possibility. Somewhere in the city, Mara was probably putting Olivia to bed in her new apartment, maybe reading the same bedtime story I'd read the night before. Somewhere else, Evan was probably contemplating the ruins of his career and wondering if the affair had been worth the price. But I wasn't thinking about either of them anymore. I was thinking about the future, about the business I was building, the relationship I was developing with my daughter, and the man I was becoming through the process of surviving betrayal and choosing grace over revenge. The house had felt empty without me, Mara had texted months ago. But emptiness, I'd learned, was just another word for possibility. And I was ready to fill that space with something real. The text that had started this whole nightmare seemed like ancient history now. "The house feels so empty without you." My response today would be different. Empty houses can be filled with better things. And that's exactly what I intended to do.